To godliness and brotherly kindness. And it's just going to be good for our souls to use our minds to just dwell on the idea of brotherly kindness for a while, isn't it? I tell you, one thing the world needs is more kindness. It just seems like some people almost get their satisfaction out of the day if they find an opportunity to be unkind. But we need to look at it the other way, don't we? I like this thing that's gone around. I guess it's still out there. It was kind of a popular fad. I don't think it's fully passed, but I like that idea of random acts of kindness. You know, you just go through and somebody's behind you in the line at the coffee shop or at the fast food restaurant, say, let me pay for the order behind me. So I have to say sometime that'll go on and it'll go car after car. It'll start up. It'll just keep going. So if they paid for mine, I'll pay for the one behind me. And they just pass it on until I guess the cars run out or somebody breaks the chain. But random acts of kindness. Well, we're going to talk about that tonight in a particular kind of kindness. Brotherly kindness. Here's where we are. Adding those Christian virtues. That adding means lavishing them. Let's do a quick review. Virtue. That's that strength from the chest says, I am going to do what is right. And then knowledge. We grow in the knowledge of God. The more we grow in the knowledge of God's things, the better person we'll be. Temperance. That's self-controlled. Patience is endurance. Godliness. That's what we talked about last Sunday night, the godliness. And our Sunday night, last Sunday night we talked about this. That's the attitude we have toward God, of reverence toward God. And so tonight, brotherly kindness. Now we're doing this by word studies. Study the word and then see where else it's used and kind of get the idea of what we're supposed to be thinking about when we're thinking about lavishing brotherly kindness. Well, there's the Greek word. Looking at that this afternoon, that's just kind of pretty, isn't it? That even if you don't know the Greek alphabet or what that means or how to say it or anything, it's just kind of a pretty looking word. In fact, I remember when I was trying to learn Greek, I'd read the preface or the introductions to these little Greek grammars I was studying, and they would say one of the things that they encourage you to do, one of them did anyway, said just enjoy the beauty of the language. Open up the Greek Bible you have and look how pretty it is on the page. And that'll get you familiar with it. And I don't know of any language that looks more pretty written out on a page. It just looks lovely out there. So here we have it. And there, it's a two-part word. I don't know if you know how to pronounce any of the Greek, but you're going to know this. You're going to know what this is. It's Philo and Delphia. Here it is. Philadelphia. That's what that word is. That's the two. The first part, Philo. The last part, Delphia. And this is the way that the Greeks would say that word. It's exactly the way we say Philadelphia. That's exactly it. And so you're reading along there, and to add Philadelphia, that's what it is saying. Now, that Philo is a word that means love. It's often translated by that idea of love. It said there are three Greek words that give us the idea of love. And we've got multiple English words too. Sometimes we say, well, we just have one English word, but that's not so. We have multiple English words, excuse me, for the idea of love. Sometimes we group them all together. That eros, I'd call that a love of passion. That's what that is. You remember the Song of Solomon and how that begins, and they're just talking about how they're just infatuated with each other and describe how they look. And it's just, you can tell, it's just a passion that is expressed there. But it develops into a friendship. And about the middle of the book, it says, this is my beloved and this is my friend. Oh, that's that phileo idea, a love of friendship. But then we get into a commitment. And that's the agape love. People talk about agape as the highest form of love. And somebody might swoon and think, oh, agape, and I'm just agape with that person. Well, that would be the eros, that kind of love. That's not what agape is. Agape is a commitment. I tell you, you might feel passion towards someone, and you might even be friends. See, when you marry, you make a commitment, don't you? That's agape, and it exceeds friendship and passion. Listen, I'm going to be talking about that next time, but let me go ahead and remind you, agape, love your enemies. That's agape. Eros, that's really a self-centered kind of love. I mean, it's just how I feel when I'm with you. Well, see, that's how I feel when I'm with. What about the other person? Phileo is that mutual benefit we get from a love where we're both just enjoying this. We are friends, and that relationship is reciprocal, and it's good for both of us. Agape, now that is all giving. That's what that, even if you don't get anything out of it. You see? Well, that's kind of the way the three is. We're dwelling now on that middle word. Philadelphia, agape. It's the phileo, the friendship love. That and the adelphius, that's where the idea of brotherly comes from. Philadelphia. Well, that Delphia, that's the brotherly part of that. Here's how it's translated in various translations. Here it's brotherly kindness. Probably to distinguish between that next word that's going to be translated charity. And that's often an idea of love. So to make that contrast, instead of say brotherly love and love, although some translations do that, it's translated brotherly love. It's translated brotherly affection. That might be the one that can strike home with us. Affection. Affection's a term of love, isn't it? And a brotherly affection that you have one toward another. A brotherly friendship would not be a bad way to put this. I don't know if that has been translated that way, but that's what we're talking about. That kind of relationship. So lavish upon that Philadelphia a brotherly kind of affection and friendship among one another. You remember this song? The Hollies. Do you remember when this song came out? He ain't heavy, he's my brother. You remember that? You do. I got bad news for you. It was 55 years ago. That's kind of shocks me when I hear how some of these songs, when they come out, and I'm thinking, how could it have been that long ago? But 55 years ago, it was a pop song, a hit by the Hollies. Here's how it goes. Look at the statue. That statue was erected kind of after this song came out to capture this. The road is long with many a winding turn that leads us who knows where, but I'm strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. So on we go. His welfare is my concern. No burden is he to bear. We'll get there. For I know that he would not encumber me. If I'm laden at all, I'm laden with the sadness that everyone's heart isn't filled with the gladness of love for one another. It's a long road from which there's no return. While we're on the way, why not share? The load doesn't weigh me down at all. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. That's what we're talking about. Philadelphia, a brotherly love. It's used 9 times. There's a little bit of difference sometimes, that whether it's the part of speech might tweak it just a little bit. But you'll find that word Philadelphia 9 times in the New Testament. Twice, brotherly kindness. 3 times, brotherly love. 1 time, love of the brethren. One time, love as brethren. And then 2 times, it's just Philadelphia. Well, now that's the King James Version. That's what I use. So we're going to kind of go through it. Your translation, whatever it might read a little different some of these places. This is how it's used in the King James Version, the 9 times. Let's look at all 9 of these tonight. The 2 kinds of brotherly kindness, that's in our text. Add to godliness brotherly kindness, and the brotherly kindness charity. So that's how it is in our text. Brotherly love. Romans 12, 9 and 10. Let love. Now that's agape. Remember agape? That's the very unselfish love. That's a giving love where even if you don't get anything in return, you're giving that love. Let agape be without dissimulation. That's not a word we often use. I don't know why they didn't just translate it hypocrisy. Let it not be faked or feigned or false. You've probably been recipient of love that wasn't genuine, haven't you? Well, let agape be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good, and then be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love. Now that philostorgos, if I'm saying that correctly, that is family love. Well, you just love your family. I mean, you're born with them and you just got them. And there's a love that's there because, well, they're my family. But then in specific, it's brotherly love. But those 2 words, you see the philo in there. Be kindly affectioned one toward another with brotherly love. There's our word. What does that mean? Well, part of what that means is when it says in honor, preferring one another. Okay, let me give you an example of that. Remember the story of Abram and Lot. Came out of Egypt, both of them rich. They got so much cattle. Their herdsmen are contention with one another about where they're going to graze. What did Abraham do? He goes to Lot in Genesis 13, 8 and 9 and says, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, between thy herdsman and thy herdsman. Oh, we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. And then here it is, in honor, preferring one another. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I'll go to the right. Or if thou shalt depart to the right hand, I'll go to the left. That's what it means. I'm not after what's the best, unless it's the best for both of us. Now you take your pick. I'll be happy with that. I'll be glad for you to get that portion of the land that you want. In honor, preferring one another. That's part of what it means to have brotherly love one for another. 1 Thessalonians 4, 9 through 10. As touching brotherly love, there's our word. As touching Philadelphia, you need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love agape one another. You know, when someone does agape you, they're going to love you unqualified. Don't you just it's easy to return that, isn't it? We talk about these words, phileo and agape, as though there's a rigid line between them sometimes. That's not always so. Sometimes the line is kind of blurry. And it might be that agape is sometimes used for phileo and phileo is sometimes used for agape because it's not that rigid a definition. But here they're kind of related to one another, aren't they? Here it is. Let brotherly love, as touching brotherly love, that church at Thessalonica, they were doing this. It was one of the things Paul commended them for. In fact, in both epistles, repeatedly, he commended them for the brotherly love they had for each other in Thessalonica. Agape one another, as indeed you do it toward all the brethren which are in all Macedonia. But we beseech you, brethren, that you increase more and more. Well, I've got brotherly love, And that is wonderful. I'm sure you do. Now let it increase. See, that is something that can grow. And we can learn to love each other as brethren and learn to do it better as we go along. Hebrews 13, 1 through 2. Let brotherly love continue. That tells you those Christians that were Hebrews, they had this. They had a brotherly love toward one another. In fact, all the Jews did. The Jews would often call each other brother. Not because they were fellow Christians, just because they were fellow Jews. And so they had some brotherly love, and they brought that over into the church, and they were to let that continue. But look at the next word. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers. Don't forget to love strangers. Look at the word. Philo, that's the word love. Nexia, stranger. You got the love of your brother? That's easy. I mean, they're my brother. There's another Jew. I know his mama, and we go way back. But here's someone you don't know, some Gentile maybe. I just don't know about them. They're different. Love them too. That's what the significance of what the writer here is teaching. Love of the brethren. Now we're getting into something Peter said. He's the one that wrote our text. Let's go to 1 Peter 1:22. Saying, you purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. That's Philadelphia. You remember when it said, let agape be without dissimulation? That's this unfeigned. It's not fake. I mean, we really do enjoy each other and reciprocate with each other and have this affection. It's true. It's genuine. It's real. It's not unfeigned. Unto unfeigned love for the brother, and then see that ye agape one another with a pure heart fervently. Again, I think it's important to look here that it's not a rigid line between those words. They kind of blend together. And maybe the love that we have, sometimes it might lean a little more toward phileo, or it might lean a little bit more toward agape, but it's not one and exclusive of one another. The words are not, they have a separate meaning, but it's not that you always keep them separate. So when you read one, don't discount the other. It's kind of a blend in here. And then love his brethren. Here's what Peter wrote in 1 Peter 3, 8 and 9. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Philadelphia, love his brethren. Be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. Well, it tells us how to do this, doesn't it? If we want Philadelphia, what does it mean? Compassion. That's part of it. Pitiful. Sometimes we use the word pitiful as just, that's just pitiful. It means to show pity toward one another. That's what that means, to have pity for one another. And then be courteous. Courtesy. Isn't that a good concept? I'm glad that's right in the Bible, right in Peter's writings about what it means to be a Christian. We certainly ought to be known for being courteous to one another and to others. And then not getting back. Evil for evil, railing for it, and all but a blessing. I tell you, it's so easy for someone to snip at you and to snip back. But you can break that cycle. Just be kind back. Do something good back. Bless back. And that circle, it'll go away. And you don't have to keep snipping at each other. Those things, compassion, pity, courtesy, and then this blessing, that's all part of how we lavish, brotherly love. And then twice Philadelphia. That's just how it's translated. It's not an idea, it's a town. It's a city in Asia Minor. Revelation 1 and verse 11 is the first time we read it referring to this town. I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. What thou seest, write in a book and send it to the 7 churches which are in Asia. And then it names the cities that it's going to go to. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. We have that letter. To each one of those, Jesus dictated to John a specific letter to address that church specifically. Now, in those letters, every one of them, Jesus says, I know you. I know what you're doing. I know your works. See, he knows us at Rockcliffe too. He knows, doesn't he? Jesus is aware. Wonder what kind of letter he'd send us if he sent us a letter. These letters had words of commendation. I know what's good. I know what's good. I know what's good going on there at Rockcliffe. What would he write? What would the Lord write? Here's some good things about Rockcliffe. And he starts listing those off. He said, but now, here's some things you got to work on. I'm disappointed in you. And he starts listing those off. And then he tells you how to fix it. You need to repent. Now, come back and do this. And look, you're going to face some trials. But if you overcome these trials, you stay faithful in the midst of these trials, and this is your blessing. That's the pattern of those letters. Let's look at that letter in Philadelphia. There's something interesting about that letter that seems to go with that name. Here are the 7 churches. The blue arrow points to the church at Philadelphia. As we read the letter, you're going to find out it wasn't one of the large churches. It seemed to be one of the smaller churches he's writing to. Here's what he says. To the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I've set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it, for thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I'll make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I'll make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee, because thou hast kept my word. Said that twice, didn't he? You've kept my word. You've kept my word. Thou hast kept the word of my patience. I will also keep thee in the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell on the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, let no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh, I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. Did you notice anything? Not one word of condemnation. Not one correction. Only words of praise and words of encouragement to that church. It was in that city of brotherly love. Now, everybody in that city wasn't loving. There were these Jews, the synagogue of Satan. They weren't loving. So just because it was called the city of brotherly love doesn't mean everyone loved each other. But it must have characterized that church. When he wrote to the church at Ephesus, he talked about how you tried them that say they're apostles and are not. And he commends them for that. He said, but you've left your first love. You need to repent and come back, or I'm going to pull your candlestick. That was say he's walking in the midst of the candlesticks. You don't want the Lord to. That means you will not be one of my churches. It's like the Lord said, Ephesus, you don't return to your first love, I don't want you calling yourself a church of Christ. Even though they tried to be sound in the faith, yet they lost that quality. But Philadelphia, you've kept my word, and not one word of correction in regard to that. I think that's interesting about that little church. So there we have it. The next virtue we'll look at is charity. That is the word agape, most of the time translated love. In the King James Version, translated charity. Well, we'll talk about why they may have done that and the significance of that word in the New Testament things. But when we're talking about Philadelphia, have you ever been to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? Now, I have. And they're having a hard time living up to their name, okay? I found out when I was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that if the light turned red, if you're going down the street and it's green, it goes yellow and it goes red. The red light means 3 more cars. And if you stop, boy, they're going to honk at you like you are just the worst thing that ever came through there. What did you mean stopping at a yellow light and just honk? They're having a hard time living up to their name. Now, let's don't be like that. I heard somebody say, look, somebody honking their horn and said, look, you're in the South now. You need to just simmer down. That'd be pretty good advice. Let's not be one of those people that get our satisfaction if they find somebody doing something like that and then they're laying down on the horn. That was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But what about this Philadelphia? Now, I know that the great road, the great migration road, went from Philadelphia down through the mountains, and many of those that came to this part of the country through Appalachia had been in Philadelphia before they migrated back through this way. They'd go Philadelphia and settle in Virginia and North Carolina and then over Tennessee. And so maybe that's why they called the little town Philadelphia, but maybe not. I like to think that they knew what the word meant. And they wanted to be a community out here in this new wilderness. They wanted to be a community of brotherly love. There was already a Philadelphia in Tennessee. And so when they wanted a post office, they had to come up with another name. That's where Vervilla comes from. But the first name was Philadelphia. And the name stuck with the Christians that were meeting. Their meeting house retained the little name, brotherly love. I like to think that expressed something of the virtue that those Christians meeting there had for one another. And that the name just fit. It needs to. I'd like the church at Rockcliffe to say, that church is a Philadelphia church. You go there and you'll see it among the brethren, and they'll show it toward us. That this is a place of brotherly love. I wish every place that puts the name of Christ outside, when people will go on the inside and meet the people that do that, we'll find that virtue, brotherly love. We're going to read, later I'm going to follow this lesson when I get through with charity. I'm going to come back to this. It says, then you'll neither be barren nor unfruitful. I tell you, it'll attract people to have that brotherly love one toward another. And we have it, and it needs to grow. It will increase. And so let's do that with Philadelphia. Those virtues. You see, we worship Christ. Look how Christ loved his fellow man. Look at the compassion he showed. Look at the pity he showed. Look at the courtesies he showed. And let's be like Christ. And then we'll just lavish upon ourselves this virtue of brotherly love so that we might have that to lavish upon others. I tell you, when I read things like that and let my mind dwell on those kind of things, yeah, I want to be a Christian. I want to be that kind of person. And tonight, if you want to be baptized into Christ, or if you want to resolve again, I'm going to live up to this, I'm going to be this, then you can respond to the invitation while we stand and sing.